Welcome to the Wellness Abundance Podcast. I'm Melissa King, your podcast host, certified master health coach, certified personal trainer, and founder of Wellness Abundance Coaching. The purpose of this podcast is to share healthy lifestyle tips to empower you to design the abundant life you want and deserve. I'll chat with inspiring people who have built a strong foundation to build a life they love. I believe we all have the power within ourselves to create wellness abundance in all areas of our life. We simply need to find the courage within ourselves to take action. Our vision for this podcast is to help you create wellness abundance in your life with clarity, empowerment, and flexibility. Grab your favorite beverage and enjoy the episode. Today's episode is a must listen to if you experience chronic fatigue, random skin rashes, digestive issues, or any other chronic issues that negatively affect your daily life. My health coaching colleague, Juliet Tabbara, shares her real life experience with autoimmune issues and how she manages her symptoms. Juliet and I chat about how common, but not necessarily normal, autoimmune issues are in women and what can cause flare-ups. This was such a fun conversation for me and such an honor to chat with an expert in the autoimmune world, because this is an area that in the health and wellness world I am not 100% familiar with. And I know I do speak with several women throughout my daily life that have these issues and have been diagnosed with autoimmune issues. So we'll get right into the podcast. So enjoy this episode. Hello, and welcome back to the Wellness Abundance Podcast. I'm your host, Melissa King. I'm super excited. Actually, wait, pause 1 sec. I forgot to ask you one thing. How do you pronounce it? Do you want me to use Romeo and Tabbara when I introduce you, or how do you want me to?
You can just say Juliet Tabbara.
Tabbara. Okay, cool. I was like, there's something else I wanted to ask her. So, okay. All right, we'll start over. Okay, take two. Okay. Hello, and welcome back to the Wellness Abundance Podcast. I'm your host, Melissa King. Thank you so much for joining me today. I'm super excited about my guest today, Juliet Tabbara. Juliet is a national board certified health and wellness coach, a functional medicine certified health coach. She has a master's in nutrition and integrative health and a bachelor's in psychology. And one of the reasons why I'm super excited to have Juliet on today and to chat with her is Juliet knows a lot about autoimmune issues. And while I have a general understanding of autoimmune issues, specifically, with women, I by all means am not an expert, and Juliet works with women who have autoimmune issues. So I'm super excited about this conversation. So welcome, Juliet.
Thank you so much, Melissa. I'm happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
Sure. So let's dive right in. And if you want to just share a little bit about yourself, Juliet, and kind of how you got into the autoimmune space.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. So I'm a mom, and I think that that's important to mention because my son is 6.5. And I think a lot of women, after they have babies, will have they're typically after they give birth, will have their first big autoimmune flare. And that's exactly what happened to me. And with autoimmune conditions, it's typically something that is brewing for quite some time, and you're having some random symptoms along the way for years, probably. Unexplained joint, pain or achiness, fatigue, probably some GI issues, maybe some skin irritation, some rashes that really you can't find a reason for, brain fog. Oh, what else? For me, I had a lot of, tension in my muscles, body aches, and all kinds of things. It's a wide spectrum. So after I had my son, it was a really challenging time for me because I was working full time at the time. This was before I had my business, as doing one-on-one health coaching, that I do now. But at the time, I was working full time. I had my son, and I was finishing my master's. So I was not getting sleep because he did not sleep at all that first year. It was very exhausting. And I feel like just the stress of having a baby and trying to balance all of that. I didn't have full-time childcare either. So I just had a lot on my plate at that time. And so I think I brushed off a lot of the symptoms of fatigue and just feeling like that general malaise. And I don't know. I was living on coffee and just constantly like just trying to think clearly and focus. So that was definitely brain fog. I started really getting kind of like achy and noticing some like stiff joints. And over time, I'm like, once I got my sleep into check to the best of my ability at that time, I was like, it's not normal to feel this way. I know it's common for women to have a lot of these complaints after giving birth because it's a big change to our bodies, and all the hormonal shifts and then the stress of going back to work and all of it. But I refused to just think of these symptoms as normal. So, and I had some complex health issues even as a kid. So I had chronic tension headaches as a kid. I had IBS as a kid, chronic urinary tract infections as like a young adult. So my health was kind of never really great, as far as some of those things growing up. So I knew, something's just not right. And I just, really wanted to feel my best for my work, for my family, for myself. So finally, saw lots of doctors, and if somebody didn't have an answer, went to another doctor and finally got diagnosed. And I did have hypothyroidism, so an underactive thyroid ever since I was a kid too. But that was officially diagnosed as Hashimoto's, which is an autoimmune condition, probably right after my son, but it was most likely Hashimoto's all along. And then I was also diagnosed with Sjogren's. So I started making connections of like the chronic dry eyes and the chronic dry mouth and things that I just thought, oh, well, that's just me. Like I'm just always, I just struggle with those things. But I realized that's not normal either. And then after my son, I also started having some really bad chronic pelvic pain and just some very like frequent urgent urges to urinate. And so I was also diagnosed with interstitial cystitis, which is not necessarily technically an autoimmune condition, but it's under the umbrella of autoimmunity, which is wider than many of us realize. So at this time, of course, I was studying my master's in nutrition. And so I really wanted to learn about using food as medicine. And I wanted to practice that on myself because all the doctors were saying, okay, well, we don't know why you have all these conditions. And if your symptoms get bad enough, here's some medications to Band-Aid them. And I was not okay with that. I was breastfeeding and I'm like, I don't want to Band-Aid the symptoms. I want to know why I have all of these conditions and what can we do to address the root causes. So that's when I decided, after I finished my master's, I went back and wanted to study functional medicine, which is essentially like the root cause, getting to the root cause of what's going on. It's how all the body systems are connected. So that was a fascinating coaching program that I did. And from there, decided that I wanted to, I had made some significant improvements in my own health through some pretty big lifestyle changes, and just decided I wanted to start helping other people do the same. And I didn't know initially that I was going to focus on autoimmunity. I just thought, well, I'll help women. And then that turned into, I'll help women with chronic illnesses. And now really my specialty is helping women similar to myself. They probably have at least one kid and they are working and very busy and have, a fast paced, probably high stress life. And they're probably struggling with at least one autoimmune condition. And so I help them through my coaching on personalized nutrition consultations, as well as anti-inflammatory lifestyle medicine, behavior change. So yeah, that was a long-winded answer, but
That's great. I love it. Thank you so much for being so transparent and just sharing your story, because I really feel like we see these things happening with our bodies, like the dry eyes, the abdominal pain, and all the other, like any skin rashes, anything like that. I mean, for me personally, I had eczema as a kid, and looking back, I'm like, it was probably a sensitivity to dairy because I ate so much dairy as a kid, like knowing what I know now. But we just kind of think that it's normal, and the conventional medical practitioners that we see just want to give us drugs for it.
right.
So this is one reason why I'm such a huge advocate of mostly women's health, because I'm a woman and I know how challenging it can be to be a woman at times. But really, I always just get so excited meeting fellow health coaches like yourself who really specialize in these areas. Because I got to say, there's so many areas that we could specialize in as health coaches, because there's so many different like diseases, chronic diseases out there that people need our help. And also, one thing that came to mind as you were sharing your story is I love that you really advocated for yourself. When you're like, no, I'm not taking medication. I'm breastfeeding my son. No way. I'm getting to the root cause of this.
Mm-hmm.
And I love that, because I feel like there's a lot of people out there, specifically women, who will just go along and just accept like the status quo per se, with this is what's wrong with me and I just need a drug
Mm-hmm.
to take care of it. And it's essentially just a band-aid. So thank you so much for sharing your story. Because a lot of people don't know they could advocate for themselves with their doctor, and they could tell them, no, I don't want to take medication.
Yeah.
Let's
Well,
find a different way to get to this, to heal from this.
sure, sure. Yeah. And there's a lot of gaslighting going on too. And unfortunately, many conventional medicine practitioners just aren't educated on
Mm-hmm.
things like how diet can impact our autoimmune health. And so I think that they just, they're trained to practice medicine, right? And you get what, 15, 20 minutes with most of them. So they're not really taking a really detailed health history and trying to connect the dots on when did these symptoms start and what was going on in your lifestyle around that point. And, tell me about your sleep, tell me about your stress, like what kind of toxins are you exposed to? And, oh, you had this virus back like 10 years ago, and that's kind of when you started feeling off from there moving forward, so I think, then in a lot of doctors, they mean well, they want their patients to feel better, but unfortunately, and I respect people that choose to take the medications. But I think a lot more people now are really looking for a more holistic approach, and they want to, they're willing to put the work in. They're willing to take a look at their diet. They're willing to take a look at what can I do to improve my sleep, and how can I, use cleaner products around my house so I'm not, getting exposed to all these environmental toxins that I may be sensitive to. And I think, I definitely know I'm not the only one that feels this way. But I definitely like to help empower other women too, to have those conversations with their practitioners and say, things that's similar to what I said. I know that this medication is available if I need it or want it at any point, but for me, I'm going to work on the things that are within my control in my lifestyle and try to reduce my inflammation through that, because it is really scary too, some of these medications and the side effects that
Mm-hmm.
they have. And when you get diagnosed with one condition, well, one autoimmune disease, and if you don't get that under control, then your chances of having other autoimmune conditions really go up. So a lot of women will have multiples like me. Um, and there's no real, medications really don't prevent that. You have to figure out what is the root cause, and really address that inflammation and control what you can control. And there's just something really empowering about knowing that even though the doctor said there's not anything you can do, I mean, I'm living proof that I never went on any of the medications that they prescribed for me. And all my blood work has improved. All my symptoms have significantly improved. I don't know that I'm necessarily in remission because every now and again, I will still have some sort of little flare, but it's very minimal compared to what it was before. And it's, I now know how to keep it from going into a full blown flare, and it's a lot, shorter in duration. So I've, learned a lot along the way, and just very grateful to be able to help other women do the same.
Yeah, it's nice having the option to either, yeah, like go on the medication or don't go on the medication and do what you can, in the beginning to avoid having to go on the medication. Um, so let's dive in and I'd love for you to just talk about like what is an autoimmune disease, actually.
Yeah. So, I mean, in its most basic terminology is really when your immune system attacks its own cells or specifically an organ in your body, and it becomes overactive. So, like in the case of Hashimoto's, your immune system will attack your thyroid gland. Um, and that just throws everything else out of whack in your body when that happens. And we're not really sure. I mean, there's a lot of theories as to what causes autoimmune conditions. Genetics does play a role. Sometimes viruses or certain medications can trigger an autoimmune condition as well. But some of the lifestyle triggers can be really, high levels of stress. That seems to be a big one. There certainly is a hormonal component because, as I mentioned earlier, a lot of women after they give birth will really start to go into, their biggest flare at that point. So I haven't actually dived into the research in that. I do think it would be interesting to study, but the exact like correlation between the hormones and autoimmunity. But yeah, it's essentially, and I don't like to describe it as your body attacking itself because I feel like when you think of it that way, as someone with autoimmune conditions, it's almost like playing the victim. I like
Mm,
to kind of consider it as my body needs something from me. Something needs attention within my body, so it's giving me these signals very loud and clear. They probably started as whispers years and years and years ago. They absolutely did. And then over time, because I really didn't listen to those whispers, or I took too much ibuprofen because I just wanted to feel, get some relief from my headaches, or took a ton of antibiotics, which wrecked my gut over the years, and really impaired my bladder health. And like you do start to make connections of things, but those whispers certainly turn into more screams if you don't really dig deep. And then those symptoms just really start to escalate, and then yeah, the body gets out of balance, and here we are.
I I absolutely love that description of autoimmune, um, because that your body is not necessarily attacking itself, which it is. But I do agree with you that like, now that you say it that way, and that you do kind of come across as the victim. And I've always been a big believer that our bodies want to be healthy. Our bodies want to move frequently. Our bodies want adequate rest in all sorts of forms, sleep, just relaxing, reading a good book, reading a really great fiction book, taking a hot bubble bath if that's what you like. But and like eating whole nutrient dense foods, like our bodies want that. That's what our genes expect from us. And this gets our body into homeostasis, which where everything's cool, our hormones are well balanced, and because that's how our bodies operate most efficiently is when it's in that homeostasis process. And you're right, over the years, like the changes could be subtle, like you describe them as whispers, and I love that because it's just whispers.
Mm-hmm.
And then I also feel like, you know some I hear some people say, oh, I hit 30 and all of a sudden I started gaining all this weight, or I hit 40, or I hit perimenopause, or I just had a baby.
Mm-hmm.
And yes, your body goes through a lot of big changes when you're growing a human inside of it.
Yeah.
And when you're just going through that natural change, with hormone fluctuation, perimenopause into menopause and all that. But there are things that we can do to mitigate that, and to give our body what it wants. So I just absolutely love the way that you describe that. It's brilliant. So, because we just kind of think like this is normal as we age. It's normal after we have a baby. It's normal as we go through all these different hormonal changes, and as we get older. When the reality is, it's not necessarily normal to experience all of these. It's very common. So what are some symptoms that you feel women should look out for? I know you already brought up a lot of them, but what are some other ones that women can look out for?
Um, I'm trying to think of ones I didn't mention. Unexplained chronic fatigue, like if you're otherwise sleeping well, but you're just waking up and you're just tired all day and there's no explanation why. Um, there's typically some gut issues with autoimmune conditions. So whether you have like unexplained, like food sensitivities is commonly tied with autoimmune conditions. Almost everybody with an autoimmune condition will have leaky gut. If you're not familiar with leaky gut, it's when the barrier of the gut lining gets compromised, and the food that our body is working to digest kind of leaks into our system, and it causes our immune system to go haywire. And some people will have symptoms with that and some people won't, but it definitely causes, it's linked to inflammation and contributes to food sensitivities. So if you notice a lot of food sensitivities, like, you feel like you're not sure what it is that's causing you symptoms after you eat, whether you have belly aches or trouble digesting the food, or whether you get tired after eating, or maybe you get, joint aches after eating something. Joint issues are really common with autoimmune too. What else? It's so different for everybody. I mean, I had a lot of anxiety. So, looking out for the mood changes too, really, like a lot of anxiety and irritability, and just feeling like overwhelmed, a lot of brain fog. So just feeling like I can't think clearly no matter what. Like I'm always just like I was in a chronic fight or flight. So really, I think this is so common too. And just having an unbalanced nervous system, like feeling like you can't relax no matter what, and you're just constantly just on. And and feeling like you're going a million miles a minute. So this is, referred to as a chronic fight or flight, where you're just in that overdrive, like sympathetic nervous system. So yeah, unexplained weight gain or unexplained weight loss, even just some rashes because I also, and another thing to add to the list is I also had eczema for quite some time. Um, and I did figure out what was causing mine though. And it was an allergy to like a plant-based preservative. Like ironically, after I switched to all this, clean household stuff, a lot of it had this plant-based preservative in it. Almost everything I was using, like a hand soap, laundry detergent, like shampoos, all of this stuff. Because I just head to toe rash like for months and months and months and months and months, and finally did like a skin patch test and figured it out. And I'm like, now I got to swap out all of this stuff I've been using, which I thought was the healthier alternative, but it just, my immune system was just in such overdrive that I think that's another symptom to look out for is when you're just really highly sensitive to a lot of things in your environment too, and you just feel like you've, got a lot of allergies and those are signs of inflammation too. So it definitely goes hand in hand. Yeah, I think those are the main symptoms I can think of.
I'm really glad that you brought up the cleaner household products. I'm not glad that you had this all over body rash. That
It was ugly.
I'm glad. Yeah, like 3 or 4 years ago, I had this really bad rash on my back and I could not figure it out. I was like, I don't take a lot of supplements. Like I'll take fish oil and some collagen powder, only if I'm not getting collagen consistently from like bone broth or, whole foods. But um, yeah, and I ended up just going to my doctor, and thankfully, I'm very grateful that we have a really good um, medical practice internist that we work with, and he's not one to just jump to prescribing medication, which I'm very grateful for. But he like looked at it and he's like, I don't know. He did give me some topical cream.
Mm-hmm.
And I used it and it ended up helping, but I had no idea what it was, but it very well could have been something that we had just switched over to and I couldn't think of anything. But I love that you brought that up because even the clean product, and I put clean in quotes because
Mm-hmm.
it's not necessarily clean for everyone. It's just like even though like there's like whole foods out there that are very nutrient dense, it doesn't necessarily mean that you have to be eating it or that your body responds well to it. Because like you said, and this kind of stems from like growing up. Like my husband and I always joke about like, oh my gosh, how did we survive as kids growing up on like Chef Boyardee and
Yeah, same.
SpaghettiOs? I used to eat a whole box of Kraft macaroni and cheese after dinner. I mean, after school when I got home, and then eat dinner like 2 hours later because I was
Yeah.
so hungry. I was so active
Yeah.
as a kid and as a teenager that I just wanted the calories, and that's just what my mom fed us. And so Scott and I joke that like, oh my God, how did we survive? But it kind of trickles into adulthood.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, so definitely really like check everything. Check your beauty products that you use, even if they're considered clean. Check your household products, your laundry soap, everything that you use if you're having a reaction. And I'm a big proponent of getting food sensitivity tests as
Yeah.
well.
So I'm not opposed to food sensitivity testing. I'm happy that you brought it up, but I think, unfortunately, they're just not as accurate as I'd like them to be, and most would expect them to be. And I think the gold standard is really to do an elimination diet and really take a look at what foods you react to. So an elimination diet, let me rewind that for a second,
Mm-hmm.
is when you, for a short period of time, maybe it's, anywhere 3 to 4 weeks, ideally, You're going to take out certain foods. If you have an autoimmune condition, for example, there's a list of foods that you can remove. If you suspect that you have a sensitivity, and even if you don't suspect, it might be worth just trying to remove them for 3 to 4 weeks and then individually reintroducing them one at a time and tracking your symptoms. This is what I do with my clients, and seems to really, really reveal what foods, could be causing symptoms, whether it's, it's not just GI symptoms, but it's rashes, it's energy levels,
Mhm.
it's joint pain, it's all of it. And I think sometimes the food sensitivity tests can be a great guide in
Mhm.
starting an elimination diet, but I do think that it's so personalized. It's so everyone's so bio individual, and we're constantly changing too. So like what I might have been sensitive to 4 years ago, I'm not sensitive to
Mhm.
anymore. But if I do eat certain foods at um, if I eat like an amount of a certain food that's beyond my personal limit, then I might have some symptoms. So I think it's also just being aware that everybody's different. And one thing that I was also wanting to mention is because you mentioned, I can't remember exactly what you said, but my point is there are foods, healthy, whole foods that can trigger symptoms for people.
Mhm.
Like, for example, nightshade vegetables. So like your potatoes, your tomatoes, your eggplants, peppers, like these are great. They're nutrient dense, like amazing whole foods. But a lot of people with autoimmune conditions, especially if they have like arthritis type symptoms, these foods may not agree with them, and they may make those joint pains and aches worse. So sometimes playing around with even the most nutrient dense foods might not, eggs are a common one for autoimmune.
Mhm.
I don't necessarily promote any one size fits all protocol like the AIP or anything like that, but I will incorporate some of those foods like as suggestions for people to play around with, and just even if they're not ready to do like a full blown elimination diet. Okay, well, how does dairy make you feel, for example? Like, how
Mhm.
much dairy do you eat, and have you ever gone a period of time without dairy, and are you curious on how you might feel if you try that out? Because dairy and gluten seem to be pretty commonly um, reactive for people with autoimmune conditions, and dairy can be a great option. A lot of people have a hard time digesting it because of the lactose, but it can definitely be inflammatory for a lot of other people. So just really trying out some of those foods. And even if it's just the opposite of like taking one food category out of your routine for a little bit of time and then noticing, did I feel any different in taking that out? Nuts and seeds are another one,
Mhm.
legumes are another one, that women with autoimmune can react to. So yeah, I don't remember where I was going with that, but I thought I'd throw that tidbit in there because you mentioned food
Yeah.
sensitivity testing.
Yeah, you were kind of piggybacking off of like the Whole Foods, my Whole Foods comment too. Because yeah, I agree that food sensitivity tests should not be the only marker. Um, for me personally, so I have not officially been diagnosed with an autoimmune issue. However, my husband is like, I swear you have an autoimmune issue because I complain about joint pain, fatigue, and all that stuff. But I just am like, well, I haven't gone to the doctor like specifically, like, can you test me for autoimmune,
Mm-hmm.
any autoimmune diseases? But I did do a food sensitivity test last year after attempting to do an elimination, and
Mm-hmm.
I just could not pinpoint. I knew dairy was on there. Hands down, I knew dairy. I was like, oh
Yeah.
my gosh, dairy just does not agree with me in more ways than just abdominal pain.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I do notice some more inflammation with dairy in my joints. And anyway, so I ended up just taking a food sensitivity test, and two things that were on there that really surprised me, two foods that I ate every day. Almonds, almost every day. I should clarify, almost every day. Almonds and bananas. And bananas came up high on my
Mm-hmm.
food sensitivity list or test, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, I'm gonna eliminate this one." And egg whites came up on there. So I eliminated almonds, bananas, and egg whites, and then just slowly started introducing them in and found that bananas really do not
Hmm.
agree with me, which is so bizarre to me. I have no idea. I would eat bananas as like a starchy carb
Yeah.
for replenishing my like glucose stores after a hard workout, and for the potassium too, for the extra electrolytes. And I was just like, oh my gosh, this is so bizarre to me. Like, I never would have thought bananas. And then almonds, I found out I could eat occasionally in very, very small quantities. And then eggs, I eliminated for several months and introduced those back in. And I'm okay with eggs.
Okay.
So, but the dairy, definitely, I can have a little bit of butter
Mm-hmm.
occasionally. Like I had some last night and I was fine, just a little bit.
Yeah.
Um, like a teaspoon or two, and then I'm good. But anything more than that, a piece of cheese, and
Mm.
it's not fun for like 3 or 4 days afterwards. Like
Oh, yeah.
it lasts a while. That's why, and it's interesting too because I talk to other people, like some friends, and they're like, "Oh, I still eat it because I love it, but I just have these abdominal issues,
Mm.
this abdominal pain, but it's worth the pain for the taste of the cheese or the milk or whatever it is that they're eating." And I'm just like, oh my gosh.
Yeah, I mean, I can relate to that. I used to ignore all the symptoms and I used to be like, well, this is just me. I feel sick every time I
Hmm.
eat. So, I just deal with it. But no, it's definitely your body trying to tell you something like this
Yeah.
isn't routine. Let's not do this as much or, at
Hmm.
all maybe. And I don't even like the word diet. I try not to use it at all. I think just, eating plan and finding a very personalized, long-term, just manageable, sustainable and delicious eating plan that works for each individual's lifestyle and preferences. That's the goal, really. The elimination protocol is really just to get some answers on what foods
Hmm.
could be worsening the way people feel. And usually within a week, people, after they take those foods out, it's pretty clear. Like they're like, wow, it's like a cloud was lifted and most, if not all of their symptoms are gone. So the power of just food alone is so strong with autoimmunity. And it has been in my journey as well, but it's also just one piece of the puzzle. Sleep is huge. We need that like
Hmm.
restorative sleep to repair and heal. Appropriate movement. You were mentioning hard workouts. That's typically not a good idea for women with autoimmune to push themselves too hard with high intensity workouts. That can trigger symptoms for a lot of people. Definitely me, I get sensitive to higher intensity workouts.
Hmm.
I think workouts should leave us feeling energized and refreshed, not fatigued and super
Hmm.
sore and just very drained afterward, especially if, our immune system is already in overdrive. But like we talked about, reducing exposure to toxins and supporting the body's natural detox pathways, that's also equally as important. And nutrition is a big part of that too. But mindset is huge too. We talked about,
Hmm.
the victim and um, just I do think some women will just accept like, this is just my fate. I have these autoimmune conditions and I will forever, and there's nothing I can do, and just check in every 6 months and, here's my medication. And If I get worse, let them know. But it's just so sad to me. It's a very sad existence. And I think when we know that there's so much that we have control over and can work on, one baby step at a time, improving as far as like our day-to-day habits and routines and rituals that support healing, I think remission is 100% possible. And remission can look different to different people. When you think of remission with cancer, it's like all the scans are clear, right? And you there's no evidence of cancer anymore. But with autoimmunity, I personally consider remission, and I'm not a doctor, so this is just my, personal opinion of remission. I think remission is when you get to a point with your symptoms where it's not impacting your life and you can live your life, feeling your best, the best that you can feel, right? Like not comparing to anybody else, but where your symptoms are not dictating your life or not preventing you from doing the things that you want to do to, be fulfilled and be happy and have joy. And for some people, maybe that's no symptoms at all ever again. And for others, maybe it's like me, where it's like you might have some symptoms now and again, and they're fewer and far between. And I'm still so very much on a healing journey. So who knows where I will be in years to come. But I'm certainly happy with where I'm at in my healing journey. And I think just able to do pretty much whatever I want to do. And I have more energy now. I feel better now. It's crazy. I was just telling my sister the other day, I feel better now than I ever remember even feeling as a kid. Like more energy, just clearer thinking, happier, just, mentally, just like a more positive mindset, just very, more mindful, more grateful, and it's interesting to me. Like, it's kind of sad. Like little Juliet was, and I didn't realize like back then that I didn't feel well, but like now comparing, I never felt well as a kid. And my parent, they did everything that they knew how to do, but things must have been brewing for a really long time for me as a kid into adulthood until those whispers turned into screams.
Yeah, I know. It's so, well, I'm happy to hear that you're feeling the best you have in or ever, really, I guess is what you just said. I think that's awesome. I um first of all, totally agree with you with the whole mindset thing. And I am a big proponent when I'm working with my clients is asking them to define what healthy is for them.
Mhm.
Like, how would you feel on a daily basis? Like you said, some women feel great having no symptoms, and that's their autoimmune being in remission. Other women like yourself feel like as long as it's not impacting my daily life and I feel really good physically and mentally and I'm happy, that's how I define being in remission and
Mhm.
healthy. And I feel like there's like you cannot absolutely cannot compare yourself to others. And this is something I work on a lot when I teach group fitness classes 3 days a week, and I every single class I'm encouraging my participants to focus on yourself, put your blinders on, focus on the workout we're all doing the same workout, but focus on your abilities, focus on your progress and how you're feeling. And it's the same thing with any other kind of health transformations. Like focus on what foods you can eat, focus on the meals you enjoy, focus on what feels good to you. Focus on the amount of sleep that feels good for you. Don't worry about what anyone else is saying
Yeah.
or necessarily what anyone else is telling you should feel healthy. Um,
Yeah, that's really powerful. I love that. Yeah, there's a lot of comparison for sure. And we're all so different. It just doesn't
mhm.
make sense to worry about what's working for somebody else or what isn't working. It's really just tuning into what feels right in your body, in your mind.
Yeah, and I feel like that's also why people want to work with us as health coaches. I don't know if you found this out, but I know in my experience as a health coach is people come into it wanting to be told what to do,
Mm.
and they come out of it being grateful that I did not tell them specifically what to do, that I was just guiding them through a process to find what works for them. And I feel like the sense I get from you is that that's exactly how you work with your clients.
Yeah, 100%. I get a lot of people, just give me a food plan, just to give me a ton of recipes and like,
Mm-hmm.
just tell me exactly what to do. Like, what did you do to feel better? And I said, it's going to be a different journey for everybody, but
Mm-hmm.
you're right, you have to kind of let them find within themselves what is best for them, because I believe that each client has the answers within. And when it comes to their lifestyle, they already know what's working and what's not. And it's a matter of, just helping that get that out of them, and then helping them to put their plan in place. I don't put plans in place for people. They
Mm-hmm.
have the reins. So I'm just here to guide, to support. I provide education when appropriate, when they want it or when they ask for it. But yeah, sounds like we have a very similar approach.
Yeah, yeah. And it's so, yeah, it's just such a, I don't know. I'm just so, I just really feel like the world needs more health coaches like ourselves, and the health coaching world is growing. And feel like a lot of people still don't quite understand what a health coach actually is and what we do as health coaches. And this is one of the reasons why I want to, get as many health coaches on this podcast with different expertises like yourself, to kind of really expand. Like, hey, there's all these people out there, all these professionals who are educated and trained up and fully qualified to help you. So, so is there anything else you want to share with us before we wrap up? Like any tips that you have that you feel like you haven't shared already, or just anything that comes to mind?
Um, I'm trying to think. I really liked you kind of stating earlier just the importance of advocating for yourself. I think this is advocating for yourself not only at the doctor's office, but at home, like setting
Mm-hmm.
boundaries, um, and just making sure also, this was not one of the lifestyle pieces that I mentioned as part of, healing with autoimmunity, but I do think like having a community is so important. Like it can feel so isolating to have these, invisible illnesses. People think you look healthy on the outside and you could be feeling awful. And it's so lonely and
Mm-hmm.
people don't understand. I mean, there's been a lot of times when my own husband doesn't understand, and he's, super compassionate and kind and will do anything for me, but like he'll look at me and he'll say, you look amazing. Like, and then, but I would have otherwise felt awful on the inside. So it's really hard for people to understand. So I think surrounding yourself with very supportive friends and family members, and really setting boundaries and considering cutting ties with toxic relationships, anybody that's um, bringing energy into your space that's anything other than positive and supportive, I feel like needs to kind of, be evaluated. And personally for me, it's like, I don't have time for that. If you're not lifting me up, then you're bringing me down. So I think that community piece is super duper important, and that can look different to everybody. Like maybe it's having one best friend and you guys talk on the phone every day, and she may not have the same conditions as you, but she listens and she understands and she respects you, and, it feels good to talk to her. And then for others, maybe it's, they've got a big group of friends, or it's, if you don't, maybe it's finding a community, like a support group of
Mm-hmm.
other women with autoimmune conditions. I partner with a doctor, who is a functional medicine doctor, and she has a practice in Northern California. And even though I'm here, we connected, and now we have a program together virtually. It's a 4-month Road to Remission program where she does the functional medicine side. So she's the doctor doing the testing and doing the, the recommendations and the interventions for women with autoimmune. And then I do the coaching. And we also created a online community for because she's also got a very strong background in women's hormones. So her expertise is
Mm.
hormones as well as autoimmune health is her more recent niche. And the reason I'm bringing all this up is because we created an online community for women with autoimmune disease. And so now we do like workshops on there for free. And there's a lot of women that are very similar to her and I, and so many others that have 1, 2, 3, 5 autoimmune conditions. And it's a place where we can all get together and, ask each other questions and just find out, hey, how are you feeling and what's worked for you and where are you at in your journey, and just having that camaraderie and a place to kind of connect. So getting creative with it and building your own community if you don't have one, I think is super important.
Yeah, I'm a big proponent of community, and especially with women, I feel like as women, our bodies go through so many changes over the
Mm-hmm.
years. And while our spouses, if they're men, like love us, and like my husband sounds like he's a lot like yours, and he's like he's not in my body, so he just can't really feel how I'm feeling. But yeah, definitely creating that community and have that support system and someone to talk to. And I love that you mentioned also like getting ideas like how did you handle this? Because sometimes we get very myopic, and it's can be when we're in a situation, we're frustrated with either these symptoms we're having, and we can't quite figure out what it is or how to kind of minimize the symptoms or how to get rid of them altogether. Reaching out to someone who's been through it and being like, hey, how did you overcome
Mm-hmm.
this these symptoms? I need some new ideas to try and experiment with, because I'm tapped out. I can't think of anything else. And that is just, I love that too. Yeah, I love just being part of a strong community. So I think that's cool that you and the physician that you partner with have built that community for your patients
Mm-hmm.
and your clients to really just connect on a deeper level.
Yeah, yeah, it's definitely unique and it's free to everybody, so that's
Mm,
nice too. Because there's a lot of doctors out there that really have, charge a pretty penny for these membership-based models, and I'm sure
hmm
they're amazing and people get great results, but you don't have to spend a fortune to heal. And a lot of the healing takes place in the things that we do for free. Um,
hmm
I would say I would even argue that majority of the healing takes place in and just investing in things that don't cost money, like stepping outside and putting your feet in the grass and getting some grounding
hmm
benefits and some sunshine, and sleep is free too. And
Yeah.
there's a lot of, you can go outside and take a walk and that's free, and that can make all the difference in someone's mood. So um gratitude. I'm a huge proponent of gratitude, just like focusing on
Yeah.
what's going right as opposed to, what's not going well. So yeah.
Yeah. Gratitude is huge. Finding a gratitude ritual that works for you in your life, in your daily life, something that you enjoy, and whether it be in the morning when you wake up or in the evening before you go to sleep, or my husband and I do one when we're sitting down to eat a meal together, and of course, other times throughout the day. But
Yeah, that's
just
great.
finding that gratitude ritual and really feeling, because then that gets your mindset in the right place, and also like gets you out of that fight or flight mode and more into the rest and relaxation, the parasympathetic mode, and to get your cortisol levels down and give your body like the freedom to heal itself.
Yes,
So
exactly.
yeah. So how do you work with your clients? I know you mentioned you partnered with a physician, a functional medical practitioner, but what other ways do you work with people?
So aside from that, I do work privately, one-on-one coaching, basically. So it's very, very customized, very personalized. We start with a pretty detailed health history intake form where we're going into all the things that we discussed: nutrition, stress, movement, toxins, all of it. And from there, once I get a feel for what their goals are and help them identify their motivation, we can meet weekly for shorter, more focused sessions. We can meet bi-weekly, but it's virtual. So I can essentially work with anyone anywhere that has a computer or a phone. Although I do sometimes meet with people in person because I do
Oh,
really appreciate if they're local and they're open to it, then I always like to suggest it just as an option because it's nice. I mean, I miss that that in-person interaction that we lost over COVID. So sometimes I will meet with
yeah.
some person and we'll do like a walk coaching session or just like a coffee date or something like that. But yeah, so it's um all of the details of what I offer is on my website, but I also have a 7-week program called Tame the Flame, and that's more of and that's designed for women with autoimmune disease or other chronic inflammatory conditions. So it really it provides 7 modules on 7 different lifestyle factors that impact autoimmune conditions and gives you kind of action items. And that's kind of a self-paced over the course of 7 weeks and does include some one-on-one coaching as well. And that's more of just kind of like a jumpstart your healing, and just some practical ways to reduce your chronic inflammation through lifestyle habit changes. And then my Nourish, Heal, Flourish is, and both of these at this point are one-on-one coaching. I may offer my Tame the Flame as a group program somewhere down the line, but right now it's just one-on-one coaching. And then the Nourish, Heal, Flourish is more longer term. And some people will transition from the 7-week Tame the Flame into the Nourish, Heal, Flourish. And that can range anywhere from 6 weeks, or I'm sorry, 6 weeks, from 3 months to 6 months to 9 months. I have a couple of different options there, just depending on what it is that individuals are really looking to get out of the coaching with me.
Cool. Awesome. I love that variety of choices that you give
Thank
clients.
you.
So, and your website is nourishwithin.com, correct?
Nourishwithinwellness.com. Yes.
Nourishwithinwellness.com. Okay, I promise you I will get that right in the notes and everything, and also with and sharing it with my community. So, awesome. Well, Juliet, this has been such a fun conversation, and I really appreciate you taking the time. I know you're a busy woman, you're a mom, and you work full time, and you're your business, and so I'm so grateful that we had a chance to connect, and we connected actually through a mutual friend.
Yeah.
So I was really excited about that. So I just have one question that I
Okay.
ask everyone. And it is, what does wellness abundance mean to you?
Wellness abundance. That's a really good question. I would say just being able to live my life without any limits, like feeling fulfilled and happy and comfortable in my mind, body, and spirit, because I think all are equally important.
Yeah.
I don't know if that answer makes sense, but that's what's came that is what came to me. So
Awesome. I love that, living without limits. So we so often put limits on ourselves, and it holds us back from really reaching our full potential. and really living the life that we want and deserve. So thank you for sharing that. I really, really appreciate that. So, all right, Juliet, thank you for being on again, and it was a pleasure.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I enjoyed our conversation as well, and I really appreciate you giving me this opportunity to share my story.
Yeah. Yeah, I hope we can even like hop back on again, because I feel like there's so much we could talk about with autoimmune. Like we just really just scratched the surface of it. So maybe somewhere down the road we can chat again and have another conversation, maybe do a deeper dive into something more specific.
Sure.
So
Yeah,
if you're open to that,
absolutely.
so cool. All right. Thanks everyone for listening, and we'll see you guys next time. The Wellness Abundance podcast is sponsored by Wellness Abundance Coaching. At Wellness Abundance Coaching, we help women lose weight effortlessly and minimize anxiety with clarity, empowerment, and flexibility. We offer one-on-one and group health coaching, corporate wellness programs, and on-demand fitness videos. To learn more about how we can help you become the healthiest version of yourself and to schedule a time to chat with us, visit melissaking.net.